Live. Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and I'm joined today by Gene from BucWhatYaHeard. You can go follow him at Super Heavyweight on Twitter, which he has up there as well, and you can also follow him at BucWhatYaHeard on YouTube. The links to all of that will be down in the description below. Gene, how the hell are you?
Man, I'm ready for football season to start, man. I mean, this has been a rough off season, and we'll just kind of have to keep the faith and hope that everything works itself out.
Yeah, man, like I was talking, we actually both talked to the guys from the PeterCast last week, and they were both talking about how it's the dead part of the off season, nothing interesting. Well, okay, nothing interesting's happening. Some interesting stuff has happened. But the point is that, yeah, we are kind of in this dead part. Not a lot of big stuff's happening. We're kind of just sitting here twiddling our thumbs, waiting until training camp. So actually, that's actually the first thing I want to talk to you about. One is, if you can, are you going to be going to any of these training camps? And then two, if you are, what are you going to be looking out for?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to catch at least two. Because I live out of town, I love this team, and I support this team, and I'm definitely going to try to make it down to at least. I want to see the Titans and the Bucs. I want to see the Bucs hitting somebody else. I think that's more of what I'm actually looking for, and then I'll catch a couple of games this season, and possibly a preseason game. So I'm really excited for the NFL season, and folks, you really have to take advantage of this because the CBA is fast approaching. So get your fill of football and enjoy it as much as you can, because we don't know what's going to happen come 2020.
Yeah, no, it should be pretty interesting and pretty good, just like go out at these training camp stuff. I know it's definitely going to be a busier season for like me and you, because just the content we have to make and stuff like that. So yeah, for me personally, I'm going to try and go to at least a couple of training camps. It's so hard to go to these because, one, it's insanely hot out, right?
Yeah.
Gene, you are in the Tampa area, right?
Actually, I'm from Tampa, but I live in Phoenix, Arizona now.
Oh man, okay. Well, you need to fly down and come to a.
Yeah, that's what I say. I'm gonna make the concerted effort to get down to some games and catch some camps. I have a plan to get down and fly down and catch for a weekend and check out some of the workouts for myself.
Okay, that should be pretty fun then. For like me personally, like just specifically like player wise, who I want to see. I want to see, obviously, how Deshaun Jackson does, because I know he's definitely on kind of a little iffy situation. Bucs fans have been brutal this year with how we've been treating players overall.
You know what? I'm gonna jump in there real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting Deshaun Jackson to have a breakout season.
Yeah.
And I kind of, and again, it really depends on how the whole quarterback situation plays out. But just the chemistry was not there last year. I mean, Deshaun Jackson performed, and in my estimations, he left multiple touchdowns on the field because of overthrows or just not hitting him in stride. And there were a lot of opportunities that were missed. There were a lot of yards that were left on the field, so to speak. And I feel like once they've gotten to know each other and work on that chemistry, I could see a big season for Deshaun Jackson, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. Especially, he's got. Well, I say he's got. A lot of people have got a lot riding on this season. I feel like more and more people just like seriously. I feel like every week it's like, okay, this guy's on a hot seat now. The next week, okay, now this guy's on a hot seat too. It's just so many different kinds of people now. Just ranging from so many different situations. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in camp and like how these position battles break out and anything. Do you feel that Deshaun Jackson's going to be utilized more in the slot? Because I know a lot of Bucs fans have been suggesting that. Or do you feel he's going to be kind of getting in more of that number 2 wide receiver position like he was last year?
You know what? And I don't mean to sound like a chicken or anything, but I want to wait till camp and see how Chris Godwin is doing. Chris Godwin will, Robert Green, I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, made a very interesting statement, and I've been kind of taking a step back and just looking at that whole position, the wide receiver position. He said, you're always going to be looking for wide receivers until your last wide receiver is fighting for that number 2 position. So you never know who's going to be that guy. And just the way that Chris Godwin has handled himself last year, the miracle, the walk-off touchdown at the end of the Saints game was a lot of, it was a great thing for the Bucs fans to see that. And, going into this season, he could possibly compete for that number 2 position. So I want to wait till camp. I want to see what he does because I can tell you right now, Dirk Cutter does want the best 53 on the field.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, you got guys. Godwin's the huge one where, like, in terms of guys who could potentially usurp Deshaun Jackson for that kind of number 2 spot. And then you have guys like Adam Humphries, who's been a pretty consistent, decent option, in terms of
the Lazarus man.
Yeah, you got him, and, he's been consistently good for us, at least average at best, or at worst,
Yeah, it's really interesting how fans always, they want to run him out of town or say his time is up every season, but he still continues to produce. So I call him the Lazarus man because he continues to get raised from the dead and get back out there, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he always keeps on, like, finding ways to, like, say, like, dude, I'm still, he's like the Chris Conte of our offense, basically.
Yeah.
But, it'll be interesting to see, especially with Ryan Fitzpatrick now coming in, and probably you want to assume that he's going to be getting a lot of these starting reps now coming into training camp and just overall seeing how he does. Do you feel that he's going to be able to have this good chemistry with Deshaun Jackson, or do you feel it's kind of, like, what are your overall thoughts on Ryan Fitzpatrick now and how he's going to be able to do as our starting quarterback for the first 3 weeks of the season?
Well, I'm confident in him. I think that when you look at the general manager bringing him back for another season and, giving him a chance to, be that number 2 guy, that's what he's here for. If anything were to ever go wrong with Winston, knock on wood, he can come in and do what he needs to do. And we saw a good example of that last season when Jameis Winston went down with injury. And, again, he doesn't have to be a Pro Bowl quarterback. He just has to be competent and not put his team in harm's way or in a losing position. So I'm comfortable with him being the quarterback. And, again, with that offensive line that they've been working on, if everything translates onto the field like we see on paper, I'm going to be very happy. I think a lot of fans will be pleasantly surprised as well. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I am too. Especially considering, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick gets a lot of crap. He's been in the league. He was a former 7th-round pick out of Harvard. He came in and he's been in this league for such a long time now. That definitely speaks for itself. Just for how long he's been able to stay in this league and just be an overall mixing, fringe starter / backup quarterback. I think the Bucs will be in some pretty okay hands for the first 3 weeks of the season. But switching over to the defensive side of the ball for a little bit, I wanted to get your thoughts on, and I asked Ren and Brent about this the other day. There's a lot of heat and there's a lot of crap on Mike Smith and his defense. And, a lot of people don't trust Mike Smith. They feel like they should have gotten rid of him this past offseason. And definitely should have, just changed things out. A lot of people were disappointed that we only got rid of, I think it was Jay Hayes, right, our defensive line coach.
Yeah.
People wanted Mike Smith's head. I think Mike Smith more than even, like, Dirk Cutter or anybody else on the coaching staff. How do you feel about Mike Smith coming into this next season? Because I'll be honest, I don't like how he rotates safeties and stuff like that, and he kind of doesn't, like, stick players in one specific spot. He kind of has things where it's like, okay, well, this safety, he's very versatile. He can play free safety and he can play strong safety. And it's like, no, the way I think about it is like, if you have a safety, play him at one specific safety position so he can learn that specific safety position and stay there and be better. If you try teaching a guy multiple jobs, then he might just end up being average or below average at both jobs. How do you feel about Mike Smith and his rotations and stuff like that? And then, do you feel he finally has the defensive line to execute his bend but don't break defense?
Well, to be honest, this is the year Mike Smith has to put up or shut up. Yeah, I know we go all the way back to last year. Mike Smith was given a contract, and everybody said this was the biggest free agent signing, bringing Mike Smith back. If you look at his defense from top to bottom throughout the season of 2017, he didn't really have a lot of talent out there. I mean, you name me two edge rushers that were playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Well, you got significant snaps, right? You got Will Clark, you got Robert Ayers.
Okay. And when Robert Ayers went down, who'd you have?
You had Ryan Russell.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Not the best options ever.
And no, I'm not taking anything away from them. If you're playing in the NFL, you're doing better than a lot of players that, you know, are on the street or on the practice squad or what have you. All I'm saying is the quality of talent that he had last year was not conducive to what he was trying to run. And the one thing that frustrated me was that he continued to run that same defense, even though that he didn't have the weapons to do it. He made very few adjustments. And, you know, that was the one thing that frustrated me. Well, we look at now, fast forward to free agency in the draft. And, you know, he's got tools. He's got tools to work with. And again, this is going to be up to him. This is where coaching is involved. He's fortunate enough to grab a Brentson Buckner and bring him into the fold. And that's a guy that, you know, for all intensive purposes, he made a huge difference for the Arizona Cardinals when they were making their runs in the playoffs and deep into the playoffs. So, he has no excuses for not getting it done, and I don't see this defense being a liability like it was last season.
Do you feel if Mike Smith does bad, they could? Because the Bucs, keep in mind, everybody I've asked, you know, they're like, there's no way Mike Smith would be cut mid-season. The Bucs don't do that. Or you kind of belong to the same mindset of like,
yeah,
it wouldn't happen. I don't think they've even fired a head coach mid-season, have they?
No, they haven't. The one thing I will say about the Glazers and, you know, just this organization, since Dirk Cutter has been in, I know they got rid of Lovie Smith and they brought in Dirk Cutter and then they brought in Mike Smith, and they've tried to stay as consistent as possible with the coaching staff. And if you look, you know, last year, what they just brought in Brentson Buckner was that the major move in that coaching staff. So I believe that, you know, what you're seeing is they're trying to be patient. They're trying to stick to the program, and let's see what happens. I think that they had a good draft, but time will tell. I mean, on paper they had a good draft. They addressed a lot of different positions, and again, this is going to show what kind of coach Mike Smith is. Can he coach these guys up and make them dominant, or, you know, are they going to be mediocre or average? You know, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, it should be really interesting because, you know, in my opinion, you know, you go in, you go out. Jason Light's done a lot of stuff to give Mike Smith a defense where it's like, okay, Mike Smith, here's this defense that you should fit your scheme pretty well. Let's see how it does. You know, you bring in guys like Jason Pierre-Paul, Vinny Curry, Bo Allen, Vita Vea. You know, that defensive line's been reformed. The linebackers are always what they have been, which is a pretty darn good linebacker unit, all things considered. And then the secondary, for the most part, has changed as well because you bring in, you know, you brought back Brent Grimes, which was huge. You still have Vernon Hargraves, and you bring in a couple of rookies in Carlton Davis and in MJ Stewart. So, you know, you're really setting up for this. Like, okay, Mike Smith, you have a lot of options.
Right.
Let's see what you can do. You know.
I like that they brought in those rookies, and those rookies are aggressive. They're going to push some of these guys that have been here to see what we do. I think what's going to be exciting about this year is the level of competition that you're going to have in multiple positions.
Oh, yeah.
And you will get the best 53, and you're going to be surprised. There are going to be some people that are going to be gone that you didn't expect or you never would have guessed would be gone. But just at the end of the day, it's all about winning. And you know, last season I felt like, you know, the team kind of underachieved, and I expect better from them this year. So this is one of those things where they have to come out and show it.
Yeah, and actually speaking specifically on the whole training camp battles and whatnot, are there any ones that you're specifically going to be keeping an eye on, like maybe the Vernon Hargraves versus Carlton? Because it's so weird because, you know, Dirk Cutter and Mike Smith have both come out and said we want to use Vernon Hargraves in more of a hybrid role where he'll play on the outside, and then in nickel packages, I believe it was, he'll go into the slot cornerback role. Is that maybe what you would consider like the biggest training camp battle, or would you consider also like maybe Ronald Jones versus like Peyton Barber and all of them, or the wide receiver battles? Which is the most?
To me, the one that I'm the most intrigued with is the wide receiver battle, because you got Mike Evans, who we know where he stands. You've got Chris Godwin, who's pushing hard to get more playing time, and he's doing what he needs to do, as a professional coming in and getting better, knowing the playbook, and just all the improvements that he's made. That's the buzz that you've heard in the offseason. If we want to talk about anybody making that big jump, it's been Chris Godwin. So can Chris Godwin push for that second position? Who ends up in that third position, you know? So there's a lot going on in that wide receiver position. And then you look at, I look at the running back position. This is one of those things where this offense has not had a rock-solid running game for the past 2 seasons. They've gotten by, and they've gotten the basics, but it just hasn't been a solid running game like we saw in Jameis Winston's rookie season, where you had a Doug Martin who was the second leading rusher in the NFL. So to improve that running game and get at least one 1,000-yard rusher can do nothing but improve this offense over what we saw last year. And it will make for more versatility, and it will help everybody on that offense, whether it's the line, whether it's the tight ends, whether it's the wide receivers, whether it's the quarterback. A running game will greatly improve your team. And a great example of that is the New Orleans Saints. When you look at the New Orleans Saints and that offensive juggernaut they had 2 1,500-yard rushers. And that's just scary. When you've got, that kind of running game, and you're giving defensive coordinators fits at times. So again, that's a piece to this offense that really doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's one of those things that the Bucs really are going to need in order to be successful this season, especially in the red zone.
Yeah, I think it was very apparent last year just how bad our running game was. With the inept Doug Martin, he didn't do much, and he had a very bad year, and then you had to turn to Peyton Barber, which he was able to do some stuff for us.
I felt like Peyton Barber didn't get enough snaps. I expect more out of him this season, only because Doug Martin's no longer here, and he's going to be playing alongside a rookie running back. So remember, folks, if you're watching this show and you're a huge Bucs fan, lower your expectations on your rookies. Enjoy what they're doing. Let's see what they do on the field. Because they are, again, rookies. There are people that don't excel until maybe year 2 or year 3 of being in the NFL, and not everybody's going to come out and be a Pro Bowler as soon as they hit their first game of the season. So just enjoy these guys and let's see what they do, and hopefully we'll have some success.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too, because I think as Bucs fans, we look to even our own division rivals with guys like Marshawn Lattimore and Alvin Kamara, and we're like, oh, well, the Saints can do this, why can't we do it? And it's just like, oh man, because it's like every rookie's built differently, they all progress at a different rate. The Saints, I feel, were very, very fortunate and even lucky to a certain degree to get Kamara and Lattimore to both do that well, that quickly. And we don't know. It could have just been a fluke. They could have a really bad sophomore season. We have no idea. It's just kind of a situation where too, with specifically like guys like Kamara, where it's like, and every time a rookie comes in, you don't have a lot of tape on them, so you don't know what to expect from them. That's kind of why some of these rookies tend to do so good. These dynamic-ish type rookies. So, like what you said, maybe lowering expectations, I feel, is a good thing. I don't know where Bucs fans' expectations are at this point.
We need to keep this even keel, to be honest. I mean, until you know exactly what's going to happen here, it hasn't been officially announced, has it? On the suspension, has that been announced?
So Adam Schefter came out, and I think
officially announced by the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think it's officially announced yet.
Okay.
The media reported, but pretty much it's not set in dead stone yet.
Right, and that's kind of what you kind of want to wait for to see where you are. But with the defense improved, with the defensive line coach that really knows what he's doing. I mean, I don't know if you've listened to this guy. I'm excited for him. I think that he's teaching these guys in a different way than anything they've been taught since coming to the Bucs. I mean, you have to go all the way back to Tony Dungy to see that kind of coaching on the defensive side of the ball, Tony Dungy or John Gruden. So, again, having a little bit more stability along that defensive line, the offensive side of the ball, having Monkus doing a little bit more on offense, giving Dirk Cutter a little bit more opportunity to fine-tune some other things. I think this is going to benefit everybody. I thought the Bucs underachieved last year, and I expect huge things from them this year.
Yeah, Buckner's a really interesting one too, because he's a really good coach, and a lot of people are calling for, if Mike Smith doesn't succeed, we have Brentson Buckner. Do you feel Brentson Buckner is kind of a guy who can slide in and be a defensive coordinator like soon, or do you feel it's kind of
absolutely.
Like yeah,
absolutely. I mean, what he was doing in Arizona, if you talk to some of those players like Calais Campbell, Frosty Rucker, some of these defensive linemen, he just changed their attitudes about the way they did things, and they made them. He just turned them into monsters. So what he's able to accomplish with his philosophy, which is talking about from the neck up, the mental aspect of the game. That's what gets missed a lot of times in the NFL, and to me, I'm happy to see that here. I feel like that it should benefit a lot of these players. I mean, just to have somebody like that.
Yeah, no, Buckner's really interesting for me because I know a lot of people talk about, oh, look at him, he yelled at McCoy and Vita Vea.
Coaches yell at everybody.
Yeah, that one I thought that stuff did get a little blown out of proportion. But I do like that he does have that fire, and you can even see it in the press conferences that he gives. He's a very fiery type of guy, and he's basically like, he reminds me of just one of the players. It's basically if one of the players put on a coach's uniform and just went. I like that because it means that he's so much more personable to these defensive linemen, because he knows exactly what they're going through, and he knows exactly how to make them be good, and I think that's right. That's pretty valuable.
And if you look at some of the players that the Bucs have had, that have been busts, a lot of it was the mental aspect of the game. It wasn't the physical tools. They passed the eye test. It's just they didn't have it from the neck up. They didn't have that desire to take it to that next level. Look at a Daquan Bowers. And I can't use him really because injury. I know injury played a huge part in him. He was never the same once he had that knee injury and he was drafted. He was just not the same player. But just the defensive ends, the defensive tackles that they've brought in, just have not really panned out. I mean, you can go all the way back to 2003 to last year before the draft. You were looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers having taken maybe 18 defensive linemen, whether it's defensive ends or defensive tackles, since 2003. So to be honest, they've attempted to address the defensive line, but they really haven't been consistent about addressing it. So it's good to see that they're trying to do it now, and hopefully that will continue on into the future too.
Do you think this is going to be the year where we do, so because keep in mind, since 2005, we haven't had a 10 double-digit sack player since Simeon Rice. Do you feel that this is going to be a year where we do get a double-digit sack guy? And if you do, who do you think it's going to be? Or do you feel it even matters? Because I
was just going to say that. I want to see pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
I'd rather see Matt Ryan uncomfortable throwing an incomplete pass than, I know a sack is huge. Sacks are sexy, but if you can get a guy that's uncomfortable and you're getting in his head and you can rattle him throughout the game, you've helped to give your defense some sort of an advantage. If you can continue to get pressure on the quarterback. So again, I'm not taking anything away from sacks. Sacks are nice. Sacks play a part in the yardage game as well. But if you can consistently get pressure on a quarterback, that's huge too, because it totally changes his perception of the field, and he's always going to be hearing footsteps, and you hit him a few times, and, he's a totally different player than he is with a clean pocket.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. So shifting gears again. Now this one might be a little bit by the way, people are quoting you now on the sacks are sexy line. That one I think is gonna stick. I immediately thought of that too. That one might stick. But shifting gears, and obviously it's a big elephant in the room since essentially just happened. We won't talk that long on it. I just wanted to get your opinions on certain aspects of this. So the Jameis Winston suspension thing, we don't know what's happening yet. We don't have all the details about it. We really don't know what's going on yet. But if something were to happen, how do you feel? Do you feel the Buccaneers should bring in another quarterback for maybe those first 3 weeks, or at least in the preseason? Or do you like the guys that we have with guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Griffin, and I think it's Austin Allen is the rookie quarterback. A lot of people are buzzing about Austin Allen too. They want him to be the starter. Yeah, people are buzzing for him.
Again, it's gonna come down to what happens in camp. As far as Jameis Winston goes, Jameis Winston's still under contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's again, this is my take. I hope people don't get upset about it. If you did, again, this is just my take. Don't put yourself in a position to fail. Me personally, if I came into the league with something hanging over my head, whether he's guilty or not, we don't know about that either. But if you've got something hanging over your head, I'm going to do everything in my power not to put myself in any sort of position to where I'm even close to being considered a risk or that considered a risk. To me, it's selfish to your team. If you know that you have these weaknesses, you kind of have to look out for yourself. Maybe get somebody that can, guide you the right way, or have somebody with you at all times. Something to put yourself above board, so this kind of thing doesn't happen. I'm a huge Jameis Winston fan. I just think that
are you rocking the Jameis jersey right now? Actually,
I actually am. But I'm a huge Jameis fan. But this is, you can't do this. Not in this day and age of TMZ, of Snopes, of some of these other BuzzFeed, all these different everybody's looking for the big story. Yeah. Don't give him the big story, and that's exactly what he did. Whether he's guilty or not, he gave him the big story. That's it's a blemish on the shield for the NFL. Regardless of whether he's guilty or not, just the fact that he's being mentioned in with a female and this groping incident, it just, regardless, guilty or not, it just makes the NFL look good because it's he said, she said. So there's, again, that cloud over his head. Did he do it or didn't he do it? My thing is, just use your head, man. Just, don't put yourself in that position to fail. Always put yourself in a position to succeed. All the charity work he's done, and then this. It just totally wipes out all the good because of this one bad thing.
Yeah.
And again, that's on him. I'm not judging him. Whatever he did, only him and the Uber driver know what really happened. But don't put yourself in a position to where people would get to use that public opinion against you.
Yeah. And actually, this is something I wanted to ask you about, because in my opinion, it is a little bit. So a lot of people have been calling out specifically like local Bucs media members, such as like guys like Rick Stroud and Greg Allman and Tom Jones. A lot of these guys who have been very neutral about the whole situation, kind of in a way. And they've come out and said stuff like, "Oh, well, it's not our job to be fans of the team. It's our job to, to report on stuff, and we're going to report on stuff." Do you feel, and that's kind of brought out this mentality of a lot of people saying like, "Oh, the media is attacking Jameis." They're all.
And I see where you're going with that. Greg, I follow Greg Allman. I get a lot of information from him throughout the off season. Just things I didn't know. He may throw out some stats out there. Very likable person. I've talked to him on a couple of occasions. So, I'm very fortunate to have follow him. And he's neutral. He doesn't have a dog in the fight, so to speak. I mean, he's reported on Jameis doing charity work on multiple occasions. Same with Rick Stroud, reported on Jameis doing work on, charity work and that kind of thing. I don't think so much those guys. Now, the other guy, Tom Jones, I don't read his work. He's like a little bit. I feel like he's a little bit different because he gives opinion pieces, and I don't know why you're reporting on the Bucs if you're going to be a troll and troll these fans like this. That's just me. I understand that there's news that needs to be given out or whatever, but he's just one of those guys that he's one of the people I just don't follow. So I understand people are upset with him. Hey, if you don't like him, don't follow him. Don't give him any kind of press. Don't talk to him. Just avoid him. And eventually, when the number of fans that are looking at them or following him, he may be forced to change what he's doing. But until then, as long as people are coming at him and threatening him and all this other stuff, that's that's good buzz for the paper, and that's all they care about.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when this whole situation first happened, I even messaged Greg Allman. I was like, "Hey, do I have all these facts straight?" And then I went ahead and sent him like a paragraph of what I assumed had happened, and he hit me back and he's like, "Yeah, that's a very like level-headed way of looking at it's a very reasonable understanding of these current events." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I have all the respect in the world for Greg Allman, like you. I've met him before. I think a lot of it is aimed towards like Rick Stroud and even Tom Jones specifically. There is so much hate for that man right now
because he's a troll.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just what he does. He writes articles to rile up the fan base. I mean, you saw that with the Lightning.
Yeah, I know, and and it's unfortunate. Well, not unfortunate, I guess I should say, but people who don't like him, they're still going to say, "Did you see this article?" And it's like, well, if you don't like it, then why are you showing me the article?
Exactly.
Because I remember somebody had showed me that, and I said, "Well, you're giving him clicks. You're getting him looks on his article and on his website.
Yeah.
I said he's winning in that sense. So that's kind of the advice I have for all Bucs fans who are kind of not, same as you. It's, if you don't like the media reporting about it, and if you feel it is a negative, then just unfollow, just...
Yeah, don't feed the trolls.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very funny, or not funny, it's very interesting because, there's been this, like, long-standing debate with, like, guys like us, who do the YouTube, I guess, we're called, like, fringe media,
Really?
Yeah. I think Ren.
Is that the term?
Yeah, Ren and Brent say it's fringe media. I mean, it's kind of right in a way, right?
Well, I don't. It all depends on how you do it. And the only reason I say this is because you have people that are super negative and super harsh. Anytime the Bucs make one mistake, they're putting up videos about it. Then you have other guys that just hey, the Bucs should have did this. The Bucs didn't do this. But they're still my team. I look at what they didn't do. I look at what they could have done. That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You look at different players, and when you look at game film. And again, I'm not a coach. I'm not a GM, but I take a little bit extra time to watch a game over and over again to see if I can see something that you don't see that one time that you're watching it. If you're at a live game or you're watching it on TV, you may miss something. But when you go back and watch it, oh, this guy was out of position. This guy was, he missed a tackle or he didn't wrap up, just little things like that, which I guess fringe, I didn't realize that's what they were called. That's kind of where I got the impression that I don't understand why people don't like Chris Conte. because I've seen him make so many plays away from the ball that you don't see. But what you do see is he may get smoked a few times, or you may see him out of position. But there's a lot of times where this guy is in the right place at the right time, and he may change the complexion of a play, and nobody sees it because they're only watching where the ball goes. So I guess I don't get all the hate for Chris Conte, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because like there was this, I can't remember what the debate was about, but it was something on Twitter where it was talking about how there's all this hate for guys like Tom Jones, Greg Allman and Rick Stroud and stuff like that about this whole Jameis Winston thing, and it was talking about how fringe media should have more I guess access or something like that. I can't remember. It was a very confusing situation. Moving on though past the whole Jameis Winston suspension, because I've talked about that so much at this point, and I'm sure everybody has.
This is, to be honest, this is actually the first time I've publicly talked about it. I haven't said a whole lot about it.
That's good, man. I made a couple of videos about it. It's such a
I'm all about who's on the field, who's going to be helping the team. I remember last year when T.J. Ward got caught with the weed, and who else? Somebody else was Deshaun Jackson. And I was like, you know what? Who cares? If they're not on the field helping this team, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my approach to it. I'm not about all the TMZ. I'm not about all the clicks. And if you don't agree with me, I'm cool with that. I respect the way fans root for this team. If you're a Bucs fan, after the Super Bowl up till now, you're a diehard fan, because the Bucs haven't really done a lot to give fans that hope that they're going to do something. But I mean, you see it now. But over the past few years, I would say even the past 10 years, they really haven't gave the fans a whole lot to be excited about. And if you're a Bucs fan, you should be, hey, you're a diehard fan, whoever you are.
Yeah, and yeah, it's really interesting because it's like expectations are always so.
And that's what's so cool about football, man. Every year, this is our year. I look at the Cleveland Browns. Think about this: the Cleveland Browns have never won a Super Bowl. I don't even think they've even been to a Super Bowl.
I mean, I think if you go back to like the 30s or something.
No, we're talking about Super Bowl, not NFL championships. Yeah. They don't count.
Yeah.
That was way back then when they had the Super Bowl forward.
Yeah.
Just the fact that every year you have this fan base and they're rabid for football, and they show up at these cold games and they root for their team, and they every year after year after year. And that to me is what football is all about. This could be our year. I mean, look at the Eagles. Nobody expected the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, especially and not beat the New England Patriots. So again, that's the parity in football, and that's what I love about the game. I mean, this could be the year that everything falls in place. The Bucs could get a bounce their way. I mean, anything can happen. So the Bucs have to go out and play these games, and I don't want to hear about how the schedule is tough. You still have to go out and play these games. The schedule was tough in 2016, and the Bucs came out with 9 wins. So again, anything can happen at any time. It's not the same team you saw last year that you're facing this year.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of the schedule, those first 3 games, those are going to be one heck of a doozy. What do you think that the Buccaneers, like specifically, just kind of coming out? Do you feel that they are going to be able to? What record do you feel?
And people may laugh at me for this. The Bucs are in every single game they're playing this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I don't see a game. I don't see a game that I can look at on the schedule and say, "Oh, they're going to get dominated." They don't even have a chance. The Steelers are the Steelers. I mean, you go back to that season to Lovie Smith's first season when they ended up with the Jameis Winston lottery. They beat the Steelers. Yeah. So, I mean, I know that it's just one of those things. Like I said, you just got to go out and play the game. Just because you're playing the Eagles, the Super Bowl champions, this is not the same Eagles team that you saw in the Super Bowl. They're missing players. They're in key positions. So you just don't know who you're going to face until you get up there and face them. So I feel like the Bucs are in every single game this year, and that's what makes football exciting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I made a video talking in the past whenever the schedule first came out, you know, and the Bucs are. And never think that your team is going to lose a game. That's at the it's literally they're in every single game, you know. It's, you know, you can win any single game you play in the NFL. It's the NFL. Anything can happen.
Right.
So never think that your team is just, that's it, we lost. You know, it's like, well, no, the game hasn't even been played yet. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, never count it for like a loss or anything. I mean, you can maybe guess at what might happen, you know, but never 100% think like we're going to lose this game for sure, you know, because there's always a chance, you know. Always give your team a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, but again, I'm not going to sit here and knock how anybody roots for this team. I know people that all they do is just criticize the team and trash the team, and it's because they want to believe, but they don't want to be let down, which, I don't know, I guess that's how people root for the team. But, you know, there's no wrong way to root for the team. If that's how you do it, I'm sure there's a group of people that root for the team the same way. Ultimately, we all want the same thing. You want to see the Bucs getting into the playoffs, winning some playoffs games, and getting to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's ultimately what it's all about. If you're just rooting for your team to make it through the season, then I don't know, maybe you're looking at it all wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, any fan is a good fan in my opinion, especially you know, for a team like the Buccaneers, you know, just however you want to root for a team. It's good for the most part. I mean, the more passionate you are, the better, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely.
But shifting gears back to we went on a long tangent there talking about non-Buccaneers players stuff. But going back to the players, and specifically, I want to talk about the offensive line real quick, right?
All right.
Because in a way, the Bucs addressed it, but in a way, they didn't address it well enough. You know, and that's what some people have been saying, like, it might be a liability, because I keep in mind, I like the Buccaneers offensive line. I think Donovan Smith can, I've had my problems with Donovan Smith and his consistency, but I feel he can come in and do a good job. I like the fact that Ali Marpet is next to him, because that will take off a little bit of pressure on Donovan Smith, because you have such a quality guard in Ali Marpet next to him. Ryan Jensen, we just made him one of the highest paid centers in the league. At right guard, that's where it gets kind of iffy with guys like Alex Kappa, Caleb Benenoch, and J.R. Sweezy, and then you have DeMar Dodson at the right tackle position. Speaking specifically, you know, just overall, let's talk overall first in terms of the general offensive line. What are your thoughts on that? And then specifically, I want your thoughts on right guard.
Oh, right guard. Again, I'm unsure as far as right guard right now. J.R. Sweezy, we know, is coming back from injury. DeMar Dodson coming back from injury. I guess right now I'm kind of taking a wait-and-see approach. I want to see them in camp. I want to see how they are responding to these injuries that they have. Are they getting out there? Are they in every practice? How are they doing? I guess the big telltale will be when they have a preseason game and you get to see how they go against a vanilla defense, and are they able to do the basic things? Are they able to protect and that kind of thing? So right now it's hard to say, because number one, you've got two guys coming off of injury. Sweezy is a definite unknown. He's one of those guys that you really didn't hear his name unless you had a fan that was talking about trading him or cutting him. That's the only reason you heard J.R. Sweezy's name. He's been somewhat of a disappointment throughout the season. I don't believe that he's been 100% healthy since he's been a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So it's just one of those things that you kind of have to wait and see in camp. Let's see some live bullets and see how they do before you can really say, hey, this is our guy here at right guard. Let's see how this all plays out.
Yeah, and a lot of people are excited about specifically Alex Kappa. You know, they feel that he's going to be the new Ali Marpet. He could be to a certain degree, but also you got to keep in mind, like, Marpet was a huge nature. Yeah, Marpet was like a unicorn, man. Like, he was such a lucky, you know, such a fortunate lucky find.
I don't know if you got to watch any of him at the Senior Bowl where he just manhandled Danny Shelton, and I was like, this guy's nasty. It
Yeah.
would be, and you know, I was talking with somebody who was who's a Falcons fan. I know I shouldn't say that on the show, but you know, just all joking aside, just talking with him, he's like, man, that guy is going to be a Pro Bowler wherever he goes. And this was even before, you know, the buzz for him started coming up. When I saw him and how he handled Danny Shelton, I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. And just hearing his name dropped in different places, and then seeing him actually get drafted to be a Buccaneer, we're fortunate to have him. He's one of those special players that you're really fortunate to have because of how versatile he is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Marpet is such a crazy player in my opinion, because like he, you know, I think, what was it, Division 2, Division 3, Division
Yeah.
2. You know, he comes on and just dominates all the way up to whenever he joins the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now everybody's hoping that Alex Kappa is the same way. I remember whenever Alex Kappa first came in, one of the first things I heard about him from, I think it was Mike Mayock, said like he has some of the best tape I've ever seen. And,
Yeah.
I thought, wow, okay, that must be pretty good. So, you know, I haven't heard his name called too much lately, like in interviews specifically where he, you know, but I'm hoping that does change, you know, getting into training camp and stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, he's a rookie, so lower your expectations, and you'll never be let down.
That's true. That is actually 100% true. Shifting gears a little bit more, and actually we're gonna wrap this up with like two more talking points here. And the first one's this is so the Bucs dealt with the secondary in a pretty darn good way, in my opinion. You know, you brought back Brent Grimes. You have Vernon Hargreaves, the third back, which a lot of people are soured on, but you know, I still feel he can be pretty good. You bring in rookies like Carlton Davis, MJ Stewart. You still have guys like Javian Elliott there, as well as a couple other guys. The safety position is a little bit iffy on terms of how it was addressed. A lot of people thought that Derwin James was going to be picked, and that was going to be one of the big addresses to this safety situation. Didn't happen, and instead,
Dude, that was a sore subject with me. I just well, go ahead.
I'll actually mention a funny story about that in a second. But you know, looking past that, we have guys like Chris Conte, Keith Tandy, which you know, I love Keith Tandy. I feel he's very underrated. You also have guys like Jordan Whitehead, who was just drafted. Godwin Ijwe-Buick, I think is his last name. I don't really know how to say his last name. And then you also have guys like Josh Robinson and Justin Evans, obviously, being the big one who is probably going to try and etch out this leadership role for this safety position. How do you feel about the safety position overall? Do you feel that Jason Licht did a good job at addressing it? And who's kind of like your guys that you would pick to be starters there?
Well, to be honest, by stopping the run and hopefully getting pressure on the quarterback, it's going to help everything behind you get better. We have not even talked about the linebacker core, which is, in my opinion, the most underrated linebacker core in the NFL, where you have Kendall Beckwith, Quan Alexander, and of course Levante David, a guy who made so many plays last year and really didn't get the credit that he truly deserves. But to be honest, I believe that the safety position will be just fine. Again, that may be something that gets addressed in next year's draft or free agency. But I think they're fine in that position right now, only because you have a different defensive line, which can totally change the complexion of a team when you're getting pressure on the quarterback and stopping the run. It's gonna change the dynamic of the defense. So again, let's see what happens in camp. But I'm perfectly fine with it. I thought that Justin Evans, a guy that I apologize for every podcast I did because I really didn't want the Bucs to draft him, but now it looks like he's come on to make plays and be a big part of this defense. Going from the middle of the season to the back end of the season. So I expect big things from him if he can stay healthy. And with Chris Conte, they brought Chris Conte back for a reason. So I feel like, again, Chris Conte knows the system, and with that defensive line playing the way they should, with the linebackers playing the way they should, I feel like it's going to do nothing but help the safety position.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Specifically on the linebacker position, so good.
Yes.
So freaking good. I've made multiple videos talking, just talking about how good our linebacking core is. Levante David's literally it's ridiculous how good Levante David is. One of top 3, 4-3 linebacker in the league. For sure. Outside linebacker, that is. And Quan Alexander, he's so young, and yet he's gaining. He's
still got an upside that's just out of this world. And that's scary.
Yeah, and he's so athletic, and he's getting so much traction on the leadership role that he's assuming for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. And you have guys like Kendall Beckwith, who Kendall Beckwith's one of the most versatile guys on this roster, in my opinion. I feel he could play all 3 linebacker spots.
He was lined up. He's lined up on the defensive line getting sacks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Beckwith's crazy. And then you even have some backup guys now, which you have a Darius Taylor, who's been a very good special teams player for the Buccaneers in the past. You also have guys that they just drafted, Jack Sitchie's 6th-round draft pick, who, if he would have remained healthy, a lot of analysts were saying he could have been a 3rd-round pick this year.
3rd-round pick, yeah.
That's huge. That just adds, and Jason Light, he's had one hell of a time drafting linebackers. He's had a very good time. I mean, Devontae Bond is still interesting because he's been hurt a lot, but he's knocked out of the park with Beckwith and Alexander. And you just keep on building. You bring in an undrafted guy like Riley Bullough as well, who hard knock star, whatever. But the point is that he was able to showcase leadership and grit whenever he played.
And heart, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think from top to bottom, this linebacking core, a very underrated. A lot of people don't give it the recognition it deserves.
And that comes back to wins and losses.
Yeah.
I think winning games cures all. And that's what's going to need to happen, especially for this fan base. Again, this is one of those things that I believe that if everybody goes out there and executes, I expect to see a lot better communication than what we saw last year. If you go back to the back end of the 2016 season, those guys were communicating. They were playing where they were supposed to. They played a lot cleaner on defense. Last year, it's like they were walking in quicksand and they didn't know what to do. And that's what I saw.
Yeah.
And it wasn't taking any. I'm not saying take anything away from their effort or anything like that. They weren't able to stop the run. They were somewhat of a liability when it came to closing out games. So just seeing the changes that the conscious effort that Jason Light has made to make these changes can do nothing but help this team.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel Jason Light's done a pretty good job this offseason. And speaking of Jason Light in the offseason, that's actually one of the last things I wanted to talk with you about, Gene. So I asked Ren and I asked Brent, which, by the way, Ren's been in the chat hanging. Ren is literally, because Ren's Douglas O'Connor, right? I'm not crazy. Yeah, he posted in the chat saying, give Ren press credentials, pass it on. So Ren's been chilling in the chat, and he's just been having a wonderful time.
Hey, Ren is the best. He's the best chat room person. You need to have him monitoring your chat. I mean, it can do nothing but help it. And there will be a Rendax celebrity roast coming up very soon.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for that. Then, I cannot wait to watch to see that. But I asked Ren and I asked Brent this at the end of my last live stream with them. So now that we've had a whole off season basically under our belts, and our roster is getting pretty settled in, guys are getting ready. What was your favorite move of this off season for Jason Light? What was your least favorite move, and what's something you would have done differently?
My favorite move would have to been the draft and how he turned a few picks into a lot more picks.
Mm-hmm.
And, just what he was able to address in the draft. I thought how he handled the draft is how a general manager is supposed to handle the draft. I mean, if we go back to the former general manager and how he drafted, I mean, yeah, he may have hit on what three, 4 picks, I believe, or something like that throughout his tenure.
Was it Mark Dominic?
Yeah, the rock star guy. And I mean, just I look at what he's, his overall, and just seeing what Jason Light is doing. Jason Light actually has a direction that he wants to go, and the way he's addressed the team, going from a team that had nothing, the cupboard was bare, to building up the offense to what it is, getting a Mike Evans, getting your franchise quarterback, getting your tight end set with Cameron Brate and BucWhatYaHeard, who we didn't even talk about tonight. 2 other people who I expect to see breakout seasons from as well. Just fixing the offensive line, and then turning his attention to the defense, and just what he's done over the period of time that he's had to work with. He's shown that's what a general manager is supposed to do.
And then in terms of like your least favorite move, what would you put?
Least favorite move? Let's see. I probably would have grabbed a free agent safety from somebody. There were some safeties that were low risk, high reward, I felt like, and I don't know. I that would have been a position I would have addressed in free agency, but again, Jason Light looks at way more film than I do. He knows his team way better than I do. I mean, this is his life, and when you have the ear of the head coach and the defensive coordinator and the defensive line coach, you guys, they all get together and, come up with the plan that they have. So they know a whole lot more about this than I do. But if it would have been me, I probably would have brought in a free agent safety at some point to possibly compete in camp.
I gotcha. And that's in turning. So I guess that's what you would kind of classify as like what move you would do. Differently as well, right? It's kind of bring in.
Yeah, and I guess it's what he didn't do that I would have done. That's the fact that he didn't address it. That's the only thing that I found throughout this offseason that I was like, I probably would have brought somebody in to compete, because there are some guys out there that you could have easily brought in. But again, gonna wait and see. I'm not gonna make a big deal about it, because I was dead wrong on Kendall Beckwith last year and Justin Evans. So I'm going to leave this to the general manager, and hey, that's going to be, that's what he does, and he feels comfortable with that move. So I trust the process.
Yeah, man. Well, whatever happens, you actually could still go out and get a safety if you're Jason Light. There's still guys like Trey Boston, Eric Reed, Kenny Vaccaro. There's still some safety talent out there. I think even Tyvon Branch is still out there. So, you have a lot of safety talent out there. If you had to pick one guy out of those few, which one would you want to get and why?
I like Eric Reed. I felt like he was a good locker room presence. I like the way he plays. He plays fast, and he has a good head on his shoulders. And I felt like he would have been a great fit, and he would have been somebody that could have helped the Justin Evans along, as in the safety position.
Yeah, no, I really like Eric Reed as well. He does have some injury concerns, but overall, I think he's one of the more polished, kind of all around balanced safeties. He hits like a truck, and he's pretty decent at coverage too. So I mean, all in all, he's pretty good. I'm trying to think. Last thing I kind of want to get your thoughts on is I'm trying to. Oh my gosh! I just drew a blank. No.
You're too young for that, man.
I know. I'm way too young for that. Oh my gosh! I can't remember. Oh, okay. I remember what it was. It was actually about Cameron Brate and BucWhatYaHeard and all of them in the tight end situation. So, one, I guess you could say, do you agree with? Well, I guess do you agree with them signing Cameron Brate to an extension? What was the extension? Was it 4 years?
Absolutely, man. Look, it's not every day you get a tight end. That he was an undrafted free agent, or they pick him up off. They picked him up off the Saints. They got him off the Saints practice squad, right?
He was with us. We cut him. He went to the Saints, and then we brought to the Saints practice squad, and then we took him back.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have, the Bucs are very fortunate to have a tight end like this. He's a guy that if you need that first down, that's that's your guy.
Yeah.
Then you have a physical talent like an OJ Howard, whose upside is just unreal. Just what he's capable of doing.
It's
I mean,
real.
Go ahead.
Oh, real quick. I saw this one play that during one of the training camps where it was I think Ren posted it. It was a screen to OJ Howard. And just how fast he is for how big he is is terrifying. It is terrifying. I would not want to be a defender and having 6'6", 242-pound OJ Howard going full speed at me. That would be miserable. And it's like what you were just saying. Given how naturally just pure talent he has is insane.
And just his ability to block. I was seeing him lighten up offensive linemen and just moving them down the field. I mean, this guy is a true physical talent, and I can I only expect big things from him this year. And I'm glad the Bucs went out and got him. I feel like that was a great move, and I think that it will benefit the Bucs for some time in the future.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, Gene, all things aside, thank you so much for coming on talking Buccaneers football with me.
Bro, I am honored that you would even ask me. Thank you so much. I'm just some jerk with a podcast and a big mouth. That's who I am.
I felt so bad because you had me on your show literally on the Super Bowl, and I've been wanting you on the show for so long, but I've been so busy with stuff because it's just common, for us just be on each other's shows. I'm so happy I was able to get you on, and we were able to do something together. I'd love to have you on again. And have
what's awesome about this, this community does, some of the most, I would say not some of, but most of the podcast community, guys like you and Ren, Brent, Dave, the Locked On Bucs guys, I've been able to have guys on, and everybody's been cool about it. There's like no competition. I feel like everybody's got their own style of doing things, and I love the content. I could listen to Bucs football, if this were like a radio station, I would listen to you, and I could listen to them, and somebody at What the Buck, some of these guys that, like he's been around forever, but a lot of these guys have a lot of good perspective on on the Bucs. Even the Pewter Report has a really good podcast too, So again, I mean, mine is gonna be. I mean, I don't have all the intro music and all the other stuff. I hope my substance makes up for all that, So. I mean, that's kind of what I go for over the, the more the technical aspect. I am going to start getting into it, and just need to stop being lazy. But eventually that'll happen. But, kind of getting back to my point, I'm just glad that, we can all say, hey, why don't you come on my show and let's talk football. And I plan on having you on, multiple times throughout the season, especially to, to kind of talk football. So I'm definitely looking forward to this season. I wish football was here right now.
I do too. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this live stream. Again, go check out Gene's podcast/show at BucWhatYaHeard. The link to that is down in the description below, as well as Gene's Twitter, which he tweets pretty much every day, talking about just overall Tampa Bay Buccaneers stuff and just his own personal tweets as well. It's actually pretty nice.
Random. It's pretty random stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
Random.
I love it though. Gene, before